Good evening, family. Good evening. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Dr. Vanessa M. Brown, and I'm your moderator for this evening. And we are excited to bring to you what is the future of the Black church. And this is part 2. We are excited about what we've experienced last week. We've had so many questions, so many comments, people coming to us about it. So we want to get started. We want to give you the best discussion and conversation that we can on this week. Our first guest tonight is coming to us in the person of Apostle Edward Donalson. He is the director of the Doctor of Ministry program at Seattle University. He is also the dean of the College of Affirming Bishops, and I'm so happy to have him here tonight. Please come to us, Dr. Edward Donalson, and let us know what you're working on, what you have up your sleeve, brother.
Oh my goodness, I was muted. Thank you so much for having me on, Dr. Brown, Bishop Yvette Vanessa Brown. I appreciate being here with you, as always, on Beyond the Gatekeepers. I'm so excited. I've just released my latest book, Black Lives Matter Movement Toward an Intersectional Theology, using research as a site of resistance to white supremacist, capitalist, heteropatriarchy, and working to lift the voices from the margins in resistance to the center of power and privilege. So I'm excited about the book. You can find it on Amazon.com or Within Stock Publishers. So thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Super awesome. So awesome. We'll talk about your book a little bit later. We'll make sure we advertise it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next guest, amen, is none other than Bishop-elect Roger Billingsley-Hayes. He is the senior pastor of Renewal Fellowship, United Church of Christ in North Carolina. Bishop Hayes, come on and talk to the people, will you, sir?
Bless you, bless you. It's good to see you, Bishop, and to Dr. Eric Donaldson. Well, right now, what I am doing and really trying to focus on is feeding bodies, souls, and minds one chicken leg at a time. So for those that do not know, I am a caterer. I also am a food truck owner, an entrepreneur in the food service industry. And so truly trying to really continue to merge the ministry of food with the ministry of health and wellness, but also what food is able to do to the soul. We're also working at very diligently at keeping people engaged during the pandemic and working on ways to be able to do that within the church body. So.
That is so wonderful. And I have had the privilege of tasting your wonderful food. So I know what it can do for the body and for the spirit and for the mind. Thank you so much, Bishop. Our next guest coming to us is Reverend YaNi Davis. YaNi is the founder and managing director of My Supernatural Life. Please, Reverend YaNi, come and talk to people, talk to them about what you're working on right now.
Yes. Peace, 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 family. Thank you so much for this invitation. It is truly an honor, and I'm so glad to be here. I am a performance artist. I'm a hip hop artist. I am a preacher, a prophet, and a poet. And at this time, I'm all about providing holistic communal care for our folks. It's important for me to say that I am also a kidney transplant survivor. So I'm all about people living into wholeness and wellness, and I am using my words wisely in every way that I can. We got the book coming this year. We got some albums coming this year, and My Supernatural Life is on the journey to provide a holistic care via coaching, community, and creativity. We actually have an event on Saturday, The New Wave, Life and Legacy, Keep HBCUs Alive. And so, family, that's what I'm up to. Peace, purpose, and power, hip hop, healing, and wholeness.
Yes, I love that. Hip hop, healing, and wholeness. Get with it, people. Our next guest is coming to us in the person of Reverend Naomi Washington-Leapheart. Reverend Naomi is the director for faith-based and interfaith affairs of the mayor's office and public engagement in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But she does a lot of other things, and Reverend Naomi is going to tell us all about it. Come on, Rev.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. It was so rich and so good. The first time we had to come back and do it again. So I'm just delighted and honored to sit with family to talk, as I said last week, about family business. I do live in Philadelphia, where I serve as the director for faith-based and interfaith affairs in the mayor's office. And in that role, I have really been trying to cultivate a sense of moral clarity within city government. How can we make policy decisions that have in mind people's wholeness? have in mind people's ability to flourish and thrive. So I really appreciate the ability to sit within the context of city government and build partnerships with faith-based institutions and houses of worship all throughout the city. And so in that way, I'm a public faith leader. And I'm also a preacher, and I'm delighted to share and break bread with congregations all over the country. I'm a professor at Villanova University, where I teach theology and religious studies classes for undergraduate students. And so it's just important to me to love God with my mind as I'm loving God with my heart and my body. And I've lately been saying, I like to curate spaces of theological disruption and transformation. And so I'm doing this under the guise of salt, yeast, and light. The Bible says we should be salty, we should be like yeast, make things rise again, and we should be the light of the world. And so I like to do workshops and curate other kinds of spaces where people might be liberated and transformed. So I'm happy to be with us tonight.
I love it. That's so awesome. And I have the privilege of being on a panel with Reverend Naomi. And I'm telling you that if you want to know about salt, yeast, and light, that is definitely something that you should be speaking directly to her about for a fee. Amen. Praise the Lord. Amen. Our next person that's coming is in the person of Bishop Yvette A. Flunder. She is our presiding prelate of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries and the senior pastor of City of Refuge United Church of Christ in Oakland, California. Bishop Flunder, please come and greet the people and set the stage for this next conversation.
Greetings, family. I am in the company, literally, of some of the most wonderful and my favorite folks in so many ways in this conversation tonight. It is incredible. Of course, I keep up with you all. I know what you're doing. As old folks say, I know what you're doing. And it's powerful, powerful. And in some ways, it is humbling, because what I am watching is the next guard in so many ways. So it is good to be in your company. I'm going to share just a little bit, if Bishop-elect Vanessa will allow me. I've been on 5 different Zooms today, and basically because of the realities of the Equality Act. Now, some of you all know what the Equality Act is about. Some of you all do not know, but there's an enormous amount of press about it. And I want to share a bit of a statement that I left with some of the news folks, and both verbally and visually today. So anyway, for purposes of conversation, this act, the Equality Act, would explicitly enshrine those non-discrimination protections into law for sexual orientation, gender identity, rather than those protections being looped under the umbrella of sex and sexuality. However, the Equality Act would also substantially expand all of those protections. The Civil Rights Act covered discrimination in certain areas like employment and housing, but the Equality Act would expand that to cover federally funded programs as well as public accommodations, a broad category that includes, by the way, retail stores, stadiums, etc. Now, the great fear that is in the atmosphere right now of giving equal rights to people of African descent, the great fear that is in the atmosphere right now for giving equal rights to people of African descent by the descendants of those who enslaved us in our nation was and is fear-based, and it is religion-supported. The dehumanizing and enslavement of our ancestors was justified by the belief that we are subhuman, unclean, uneducable, unequal, and these travesties of justice were defended by the belief that our substandard lot in life was the will of God. And the slaveholders defended this position with good Bible passages, such as slaves obey your masters as you do the Lord. Thankfully, most have evolved from the literal belief of a race being given divine permission to withhold the rights of another race, but not everybody is free from that just yet. How then can we now again as a nation, seek to justify discrimination based upon who a person is. And so I want to say again, here is my transparency. And I want everyone listening to us tonight and sharing with us this evening and tonight to now not only name in your hearts and minds, but to celebrate your transparency. I am a woman. I am legally married. I'm a pastor. I am Black. I am same gender loving. And there was a time when most, if not all of these things, these defining realities, as I call them, of my life and ministry were a problem to somebody's religion. When religious freedom is in fact freedom to discriminate against those who do not fit the conservative majority norm, then what is allegedly freedom for some is bondage for others. Some do not want their tax dollars to support my freedom as a Black gay woman clergy person. And I know that's a lot for a lot of folks to ingest at one time. Frankly, I would rather that my tax dollars not support bigotry and racism and homophobia and hatred. But this is the United States of America with freedom and justice for all. This is the oxymoron, freedom and justice for all. So both of these freedoms, these diametrical freedoms matter. And we must find ways to coexist without ending the existence of the other. This is complicated, by the way. Religious freedom to discriminate, where narrow religious preference becomes the law, is the oxymoron that would have us become a theocracy and not a democracy. And I am so sure that there are numerous people that really want the United States to be a theocracy, a Christian theocracy, and not a democracy. We cannot legislate religion. There are too many belief systems and too many faith paths. This is not the conservative Christian states of America. If that weren't so long, I would make it a bumper sticker. This is not the conservative Christian states of America. This is the united, operative word, states of America. We don't honor God and good with religious narrowness. God has the whole world in our hands. I am a pastor. I am a poster preacher for the Equality Act. And once and for all, let freedom ring, let equality rule. And that is my prayer. That is my intention. And I'll fight to see it happen. It is important that today, all over the country, people are launching statements and endorsements for the Equality Act. I think it's important for us to have an opportunity to talk about it tonight. God bless.
That's so wonderful, Bishop Flunder, and you always bridge us into the place where we need to go. I want to first thank our Facebook Live audience and the YouTube audience. I'm going to ask that you please share this Facebook Live. Please share the YouTube. Let's raise the visibility of this conversation. I have been watching Facebook. I have been watching different social media platforms where this conversation has gone on ad nauseum, right? Clubhouse conversations so much. But I want us to be sure that when we have these conversations, that we do not have these conversations without LGBTQI representation or queer representation. I have noticed that many arenas have not had voices of ours. And I know YaNi know what I'm talking about. She's seen some too. We don't have the representation. We cannot have these conversations without it if we're going to talk about the future of the Black church. All right. And so I'm going to delve into this. We've had some conversation on last week. This is part 2. And so I'm going to let Reverend Naomi Washington-Leapheart give us a jump start moving forward off of what Bishop Flunder said about equality, but talking about the future of the Black church at the same time. Reverend Naomi.
Thank you, Bishop-elect. Yes, the Equality Act represents a choice that the Black church, big B, big C, must make. This is an opportunity to not just rhetorically be about Micah 6:8 or about justice for the least of these. All of the fire and passion that we bring to that rhetoric, it returns void if we don't actually support the political structures and mechanisms that get us closer to Jubilee. They're not the be all end all, but they get us closer to Jubilee. And I'm still thinking about that question that has been posed since last week about must the Black church stay Black? How do we know a Black church when we see it? What's the difference between being phenotypically, aesthetically Black and being politically Black? Jordan Hurston said, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And I think that perhaps it might be true that all congregations that have predominantly Black folk, all Black folk, may not rightly be considered Black, big B, politically Black, concerned about Black folk, interested in risking something for Black folk. And so, I think that the future of the Black church needs to answer the question, are we really Black? As we continue to further define what Blackness means as a political ethic, as a moral call, not just about a certain kind of aesthetic, a certain kind of sound, and I think that what is political about Blackness is actually in the sound, in the aesthetic, right? So I'm not trying to suggest that there's not something holy and righteous and justice seeking about our sounds, about our ways of doing church and being church. But we got to extend that to something beyond the fiery rhetoric, something beyond the turns of phrase, something beyond the cadences, to actual clarity about how we make this thing real in the public square. And the Equality Act presents an opportunity for us to do that.
Excellent. Reverend Donalson, talk to us about what you just heard Bishop Flunder say, what you just heard Reverend Naomi say.
So, Reverend Naomi, thank you so much. I adore Reverend Naomi, but anyway, that's just my own thing there. But let me say thank you for naming the Black church big B as political reality. I'm going to say, for me, the Black church is that church that is born as subversive and transgressive. And as an institution, we're born out of a response to white supremacy and theological hegemony. So the future of the Black church is in a renaissance of both prophetic preaching tradition, but revolutionary resistance praxis. When we move to the praxis of revolutionary behaviors, such as the ways that we vote, the ways that we engage the political system, and the ways we advocate the abolition of certain political systems, right? That's a revolutionary, that's the Black church. Now, whether or not the skin color is necessarily of a darker hue is almost irrelevant if there is no real movement toward a practical engagement of the prophetic tradition of the church. As a Pentecostal, I want to say we've got to really understand even what Pentecostalism is as it relates to the place and space where they both spoke in multiple languages, but they heard in multiple languages, and they heard in the language that was most appropriate for their liberation and for their freedom. So coming out of the tradition that I come from as a Black Pentecostal, right, that means that I must radicalize both my speech and my behavior in order to see to it that the people are most liberated who are most marginalized. And this is what Marriage Equality Act does for us. It gives us an opportunity to be reflexive and responsive and nimble as a Black church.
Thank you so much, Reverend Donalson. Reverend YaNi?
Yeah, so as I think about the origins of religion and thought of the spirit of the sun of all that allows us to move and have our being, I think about ancient Kemet, and Kemet, the word meaning black land, as it relates to the black land, but also the red lands around it. So if we are people of a red land, if our origins of thought and thinking and consciousness and awareness and religion trace back to all that is black, I bring it forward a little bit, and I think of Jesus as black, as the other, as the one seen as not falling into the fold and into the mix, right? The one coming against empire, the one speaking out against empire, the one living into spirituality, living into miracles, living into this God consciousness, this oneness, this universal reality, functioning under universal laws. And so I think about Jesus as black, even as I think about black Christian nationalism and what that could mean to our people and our reality, right? Not a reality that says we want to be superior or power or to have power over, but a black Christian nationalism that says we are a movement, that we are empowered, and that we are a people coming together in terms of liberation and freedom, and the black brilliance and aesthetic that is ours. And if we are to have a movement, all movements are political. To leave out the political would do a disservice to all of us, all human beings, or humane beings, as I like to call us, those folks that are focused on compassion, those folks that live into compassion, those folks that live into suffering with someone else. So I trace the roots back to Kemet, the black land. I trace it to Jesus as a representation of what it means to be black. And then I bring it forward to think about all movements are political. All movements are political. And so it is time for all of us as a united front to flip these tables over and be united in a political movement altogether. So where are the black humane preachers out there? The ones that are willing to suffer with us in this black land and in this vital moment.
Thank you so much, Reverend YaNi. Bishop-elect Roger Hayes.
So much is being said, and so many wonderful things. A few years ago, at one of the award shows, when asked by a reporter, Issa Rae responded, and when they asked her, who was she going for? She said, "I'm rooting for everyone black." That term has continued to resonate with me. A couple years ago, I was on a retreat and I saw a young man with a jacket on, and his jacket said, "I'm rooting for everyone black." I said, "Oh my God, I gotta have one of those, So I requested one for Christmas, and Santa Claus brought me one. And I wear it, and every time that I put the jacket on, the minute I put it on, it's almost like putting on a mink coat. It has, Bishop, that feeling that your mother would speak of about the mink coat, now that we can afford one, that story. When I put it on, there's a feeling that comes along with it. I'm rooting for everyone black. And when I'm walking through the grocery store or Costco or wherever I may be with that jacket on, and I see another person of African descent, I want them to know I'm on your side. Now, it doesn't matter to me where you come from. It doesn't matter to me what else is going on in your world. I just want you to know I'm on your side. I am rooting for you. And my rooting for you means that I am in alignment with your success. I want to see you successful. And when we talk about the Black church, big B, big C, that is what it's about to me. It is about being able to say to my brothers and sisters, I am for you. I am on your side. And with the Black church, I also think that one of the big things that we've got to do now is we've got to, in some ways, go back to reframing and understanding who we are and where we've been so that we can really grasp where we're going. One of the things that I appreciated very much about the PBS special was the time that was spent dealing with history, not just church history, but Black and African-American people's history in this nation. Because when we understand that, then we can understand why Miss Ray said, I'm rooting for everybody Black. We can understand that we're in this fight together. And this fight does not leave anyone out, be you LGBT, whatever, however, and whoever I may have thought didn't deserve to be at the table. No. This fight says everybody gets to come to this table, because that is the only way that we're going to, in a very real way, live out this wonderful idea and concept of the Black church. James Cone said that Black religion's themes of justice, hope, and love are the product of Black people's search for meaning in a white society that did not acknowledge their humanity. I believe today it is not about looking for someone else to acknowledge my humanity. I want to be able to look within my own people and acknowledge humanity. And when we come together, one of the things that the pandemic has certainly done for me, I am one of those individuals that came to church to be changed. I went to church for an experience, and that experience would lead to an exchange of me for God, and all that the day and the world and the month had been, or the week had been. There was an exchange that happened for me on Sunday mornings. And so being away from that now has been very difficult. It's been very hard. And thank God for Zoom and Facebook Live and all that. And I'm cheering it all on. And I believe that it will definitely be a part of who we will be in the months and years to come. But I want to be very honest and say, I miss the fellowship of the saints. I miss what happens in Black church. I miss being able to share one another's burdens and lifting in the very concrete way that is essentially what the Black church is and what we offer. No matter what you've been dealing with all week, I may have had to work in a very degrading job, but when I come to church, all of that is laid to the side, and I get to experience God in a real way. And out of that, I believe what James Cone speaks of here, and understanding this justice, hope, and love is at the center and at the core of who we are. And we've got to continue to root for one another, build one another up, hold one another up, and not be afraid of the differences, because those differences do not separate us. Those differences really is what makes us good stuff. So.
Thank you so much, Bishop Yvette A. I know that Reverend Naomi wants to raise something, but I want to raise this particular statement. Many of you may know Reverend Billy Michael Honor, and he says on a Facebook post about a day ago, he says, in the same week that PBS released its documentary, which uplifts the rich legacy and value of Black churches, Pew Research Center also released a report that shows for 61% of Black Americans, the race of their congregation isn't a high priority. This goes back to Naomi's first question, initial question about the Black church staying Black. There's an important conversation to be had about the implications of these two important studies of Black Christianity and religiosity when considered together. What does it mean that the majority of the 8,600 Black Americans the Pew Center interviewed acknowledged the role predominantly Black churches have played in moving the country toward equality, and yet these same Black Christians felt that Black congregations should be more racially and ethnically diverse? What does this tell us about the present and future of Black congregations' internal connection to racial uplift agendas? Is the public moral witness of Black congregations made better or worse if they become more demographically diverse? Important questions to consider, as many of us are having a substantive and needed discussion about Black churches, past, present, and future. So Bishop Flunder, I'm going to go to you, then I'm going to go to Reverend Naomi, And
You
then I'm
just
going to
would.
go to Reverend YaNi and Bishop Hayes and Reverend Donalson in that order. Dr. Donalson.
She just would. She just would. Remind me, Naomi, to speak to Bishop-elect after this program is over tonight. Let's just say multiracial, multicultural are different things. And maybe the best way for me to say it is that City of Refuge, culturally, this is City of Refuge, is a Methodist church in the Black church tradition. There are hymns that when we sing the first line or two, everybody can pick them up and move forward with them for the most part. Now, there are people who worship with us who are Asian, people who worship with us who are white, people who worship, and these are members. These are not simply visitors. These are members of our church. But if you are a member of City of Refuge, you won't have to be with us long before you clap on the 2 and the 4. It doesn't happen right away, but after a period of time, the dominant culture of our church is church in the Afrocentric, African American, Methodist way of church. You will have to get accustomed to a drum set. You would have to get accustomed to a B3 organ. You would have to get accustomed to tambourines and or not find them problematic in order to be in worship with us. What does that suggest? We do have a number of people who are members of our church who are not African Americans, but they are people who appreciate and enjoy the sound, the cadence, the method, the length. How about that? All of the things that are associated with being influenced by Black church. Now, I don't apologize for that because I think that churches should have some cultural identities. What happens, what I have seen is when churches try too hard to be way too many things, they end up not doing anything well. It's kind of like, food. I like a lot of different kinds of food. I really do. But I don't want my chicken, mixed up with my kimchi. If you understand what I'm saying, if there's something that's not exactly right, somebody understands what I'm saying about that. Okay? That there is a way, and you have to come that way. Now, a lot of the people that belong to us, I'm just using us as an example, emerge from the South. We get people who are not Black that emerge from the South, and they get right on in there because there's a certain sameness in some places in the South in the ways in which worship does happen. Then there's some Black people who are part of our church that find the way that we carry on problematic because they have been acculturated in environments that are not Methodist Pentecostal. And I'll close with this. The first experience I had in the United Church of Christ in a national meeting, in a General Synod, was in Oakland, California. So of course we went. And they asked me to bring the choir. Hallelujah. So I brought City of Refuge, the City of Refuge choir, to the service. So there were some people of European descent who came to the back and said, oh my goodness. So there were 2 groups of Black people in the back. There were us and another group from Los Angeles. And they said, walked up to the both of us because we were standing sort of close to one another. They said, so you must be the gospel choir who is coming to sing for us tonight. And so the other choir said, we don't do gospel. And they said it just like I just said it. So I was shocked and appalled and taken aback. And so I said to the person who said what they said, I said, well, we do. Come over here. You can talk to us. We do. We do gospel music. And the other choir sang spirituals, which they called spirituals. And they were those kind of spirituals, if you understand what I'm saying. It was the words, but the You understand where I'm going with that, you know. And the one that they sang that night was soon I will be done with the troubles of the world. And they were very precise. Well, there we were with our organ and our drums and clapping on the 2 and the 4. And the people had a ball. It reminded me of Oh Happy Day, the way Oh Happy Day affected the world, coming right out of the Black church, right into the world and affected the world. It was that kind of impact that night. Well, that to me is the best answer that I can give you without belaboring the point. I am concerned that we never lose our Methodabapticostal selves, not because I think it's greater than other things, but if we surrender it simply because we are trying to conform, something is wrong. We can keep our way and improve our theology. That's the heart of what it is that is comes up for me.
That's good. Thank you so much, Bishop. Reverend Naomi.
Yes, I mean, I think that what Bishop has illustrated by telling the story about City of Refuge is what happens when whiteness is not I think that integration has proven to be a betrayal. That without doing something about the toxicity of whiteness, about the lies perpetuated by whiteness, then introducing whiteness and non-Blackness to our spaces will infiltrate them. You know, it's like, you know, this is we haven't rooted out the problem of whiteness. And so, you know, at City of Refuge, Blackness is a radical politic. It's an ethic of care and resistance. And so the non-Black folks at City of Refuge, in order to be a part of the community, have to align with a radical politic. And that requires renunciation of that toxicity, the toxicity that white folk have inherited based upon the history of this country. And so, you know, I think that so they're not there to be titillated by the Black folk. They're not there to be vultures to Black culture. They're not there to save Black folk, right? These are the lies of whiteness and white supremacy. They're there because they align with the radical Black politic that's at City of Refuge. And so if a multiracial, multicultural space is going to work in terms of its transformation, that space has to surrender to the ethics of Black radical Christian tradition. And so I feel like, you know, back to this original idea of, you know, should Black churches stay Black? What do we do when we've been sold that integration is a value, is a moral good, but integration has betrayed us? You know, I think Black church spaces have to prove, and multicultural spaces have to prove themselves trustworthy. Can this experiment be trusted? You know, can I trust you to not acquiesce to the rules of white supremacy culture? Eventually, you may not at the beginning, you know, and Corey Edwards, who's a Black woman scholar at Ohio State, has done a lot of work. Her whole research project right now is studying what makes multiracial congregations successful. And by successful, she means, how do they last? How are they not just an experiment that fizzle out once the white people take flight, right? And she follows ethnographically congregations and the results are what we think they are, that something turns in the congregation once the racial demographics shift. So you go from, say, a majority white congregation to a relatively mixed congregation, and something happens such that white folk leave. It's not overnight. There's never an egregious something or other, but it's like slowly eroding the kind of happy belief that integration is a panacea. And what it is the more Blackness takes prominence, the radical ethic of Blackness, the radical resistance of Blackness takes center stage, that throws off the foregone conclusions of whiteness, which is that I'm gonna be in power. I'm gonna make all the decisions. You know, my children won't have to. I won't have to put my children in the position, right, to be commingling, right? I mean, we can, right? And once that breaks down, that's it. That's what our research has found. So, you know, I do think we need to take seriously the extent to which we have believed in integration, but integration has not proven itself to be the panacea that we thought, because we haven't actually eradicated the culture of whiteness, the toxicity of whiteness, right? So, you know, I still say the Black church must stay Black.
That's good, Reverend Naomi. Thank you for that. I wanted to just piggyback off of a comment that Bishop Flunder made when she was talking about the choir. And I remember very clearly telling her about a story, and I'm not going to name which one of the churches it was, because then people have figured out, but someone came to visit our church, and they were white. And, you know, they said had a good time, but it was so loud. We loud. What you want? We was shouting, we was singing, the organ was going, the piano, the drums. We were having a good time. Like there was, you know, I mean, you know, you have people that wear hearing aids and all that. I get that, but there was no real sense of that, because people were we weren't loud just to be loud. We were loud because the Spirit of the Lord was upon us. What were we supposed to do? I said to that person, thank you for visiting us, and perhaps this is not the church for you. Now, somebody might say that was rude, Vanessa. I don't know what you want to do. We're not going to turn the sound down. When I'm going to tell the saints, oh, you got to shout lower. I'm not going to do that, right? So anyway, okay, Reverend YaNi, come on.
Look now, I used to love getting loud at City of Refuge. It was the only place I could get loud at in the Bay. So I give thanks and glory and honor to God for the space that was created for me to live into the fullness of my expression, right? Okay, thank you for the contemplative practices where we sat in a silent retreat, you know, learned my Ignatian, whatever. But there were times where I had to get loud and shake all of that institutional racism out. There were times where I had to come and shake that white gaze out. There were times where I had to come and shake those failed grades out because the professors didn't understand the context I was coming from. So, you know, thank God for the space. Also, as I think about music, I think about being in the Spelman College Glee Club and actually being the chaplain in the Glee Club while I was matriculating there. And thinking of the wide array of music that we sang and performed all around the country, right? Whether we were in the Deep South or whether we were in some county, Davis County in Utah. Right, we were able to live into the expression in all the ways that it would come through, right? Even being allowed to be the first rapper, hip hop artist, spoken word artist to perform with the Glee Club over its 95-year history. Well, now 95 years. It was about 15 years ago when I first started. So also as I think about the Black church, and as I think about whiteness, and it being in the space of Black church, Black sacred space. I'm just tired of whiteness trying to tell us what to do. right? That's what I struggle with. I mean, and I guess I'm taking it back today. I'm pulling from my historian, whatever. But as I think about even Manifest Destiny said that the expansion of America was necessary, inevitable, and justified. And in my mind, it absolutely was not. So as we trace back these denominations, the expansion to civilize us, even in terms of Christianity, was necessary, inevitable, and justified in their minds, right? So for me, that takes me to a place of womanist ethics, womanist tenets, the womanist tenet of radical subjectivity. And if we take that back to the Enlightenment era of radical subjectivity, it speaks about critical thinking. So when I bring that present day to my reality, and as we are creating Black spaces, as long as that element of critical thinking is there, both in how we establish these spaces, and also as we think about our white, and I'm gonna say this, not the allies, not the allies, not the co-laborers, but the co-conspirators, right? The ones that would be identified as race traitors. Those are the folks that I believe would edify and uplift and enhance Black spaces. So those that are able to think critically about their lives, their place, their space, and always understand this dynamic of assimilation, of integration, and all that has meant to our people. I'm also one of the founding members of Rise Christian Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Blessings to my dear pastor there, Reverend Maisha Handy. And so we came together saying we need to create an African-centered space, right? An African-centered Christian space where we can be fully African descended, where we can be fully followers of Jesus, and also live into our expressions as African people. So that space there was created. Now, I'm not saying that it is going to kick white people out and not invite them in, right? We are about all people, but it has to be a certain understanding, a certain level of humanity that you have, a certain level of understanding of one's place as a white person within the space. I don't want to be in Black spaces that were created for me where my authenticity is compromised. I don't want to be in Black spaces where my freedom is limited. I don't want to be in Black spaces where my expression is limited because of this white gaze, because white people are around, and because of this construct of whiteness. And I am a pastor that recently resigned from a white congregation. 2 years in a row, I worked for white congregations, right? That wanted to be inclusive, that wanted to be diverse, right? But essentially, that critical thinking had not gone into the process, right? That element of deconstructing what it means to be a white space, inviting Black and brown bodies in, was not taken into consideration, right? And so as a church planter, having had these experiences both in Black churches and white churches, unfortunately not multicultural or multiracial or multi-ethnic, right? But literally having that vast contrast, recognizing the disparities, recognizing what's missing, and recognizing that if Black spaces are to be created, they need to be Black in essence, Black in agency, Black in truth. And Reverend Naomi, thank you so much for reminding me of this whole theory I'm developing around clergy caste systems. So having been put in my place, right, as a Black young woman within the church dynamic, it is time to look at how these injustices have traced, right? Even if, as we think about Hindu society and the caste systems that have been placed in terms of people and where they show up societally, even in terms of their skin color, their tones, right? How much money they have, purity in terms of their religion. I see the same thing coming up within the church dynamic today. Even sometimes I imagine it as a totem pole. One would say that I, with all of the intersections that I come with, am at the bottom of the totem pole. But thanks be to God, I know what freedom and liberation and truth and ascension and what it is to walk like Christ on this earth. So We got some clergy caste systems coming up. It's time to shift the powers that be. It's time to think about the agency that goes into creating Black spaces. And I'm not saying we can't invite our white co-conspirators, right? We can't invite those people that are down with the movement, down with the cause. But look, you got to come with a certain level of understanding and respect when you come over here.
Yes, period. Bishop-elect Roger Hayes.
Something that Bishop said that I think just really needs to be lifted up again. We keep our way and improve our theology. I am unapologetically Black, Pentecostal in my worship expression, gay, and male. All four of those identities cause me grief at times in my life. I remember whenever I was doing my MDiv work at Wake Forest, one of my professors who was a female, wonderful teacher, but every time conversation got going and I would say something, there was a sense of hostility that came from her. White lady, a strong feminist, but she perceived me as a Black Pentecostal man. The gay part was irrelevant. Those other three identities caused her to always be on guard with me, as though anything that I would say was going to be in some way or another misogynistic. In some way or another, it was going to be coming against her very personhood, until she and I just literally just ended up finally just happened to have a meeting that I requested. Just asked her, honey, what's your problem? Literally, what's your issue? So that we could talk about it. And from that conversation, we were able to then do some work around why there's this break and why these challenges do happen. That I can't keep my way as being a Pentecostal, of being a Black male, does not mean that in any way I have lost the desire, the willingness, or even the ability to expand my theology. That what I grew up believing and what I grew up hearing, and yes, I grew up in that, but that is not what I ascribe to today. It's almost like that the agreement to secrets that we as oftentimes as clergy, certainly as Black people in the church, we love to keep these agreements with secrets. Well, I fly against that. I don't agree with secrets anymore. I believe that it is time for us to be transparent, open, and honest about our life, who we are, our struggles, our realities, because the more transparent we are, the more possibility that there is for people to grow and to expand. Integration has costed us so much. Now, our church makeup is one that we're probably about 60-40-ish Black to white. So we have a nice contingency of Caucasian members, people in our church, also individuals who were not necessarily of the Christian faith has been members of our congregation. But we are still very much a Black church, in the fact it's not about the race of the people. It's about the call of the people. And it's about understanding what that means and embracing that justice, hope, and love message. Whenever I oftentimes take part in multiracial, but also interfaith services, it's always funny to me. Reverend Naomi, they always want to put me last. And there's this idea that Roger's going to bring it home. That Roger's going to wrap it all up and put a bow on it and get the people excited and esteemed. And when I tell you, that bothers me so much, because so oftentimes the spirit that comes with that expectation is one that, well, Roger's loud. Roger's extra. Roger's going to be all of that. And it makes me feel as though that there is this sense and this idea that the more expressive we are in our worship than the more naive or unintelligent we are. And I think this is where we must begin to really make some real strides in our continuation of our theology, of our expanding our knowledge base, not being afraid to go to school, not being afraid to learn, not being afraid to challenge some of Mama and them's old religion and bring about a new understanding and new revelations that are right here before us, so that whenever we walk into those spaces, I don't have to apologize for my loudness. I don't have to apologize for my expression of my faith, but that it comes with power and intellect. That when I bring the Spirit, baby, I bring the Spirit. All of it comes whenever I show up. And so I think that those things are just really important. But integration, it has costed us a lot, because so oftentimes what we do is, and then I'll use I statements. Oftentimes what I do is I begin to try to take down, and I want to turn the volume down. If we have 3 or 4 white visitors that Sunday, I find myself struggling with myself. Should I have him to play a little softer? Should we not pray so long? Should I make sure that I turn my sermon just a little shorter and clip off that last, 8 minutes? How should I adjust for this? And that is the feeling and the pressure and the sense that I no longer want to struggle with, that I can integrate and be a part of without having to give up my uniqueness of my own spirituality.
Thank you, Bishop Hayes. Dr. Donalson.
The most junior gentleman from Georgia, Senator Raphael Warnock, wrote a book prior to becoming senator, The Divided Mind of the Black Church. In this work, he elucidates the bifurcation of what it means to be Black church, because we are not a monolith, right? And there are so many ways of being Black church. The center of the book, thank you so much, Dr. Brown. The center of the book theme is that Puritanism and evangelicalism crept into the Black church disguised as a politic of respectability. As we moved further into the Word of Faith movements, into other evangelical money-making enterprises, pre-critical of the ways in which capitalism is designed to traffic in Black bodies, segments of our churches began to lose their prophetic edge. And juxtaposed to that, other parts of the Black church doubled down on the tripartite assignment of the 19th century Black church: proclamation of the reality of divine liberation, participation in actively working toward the struggle of liberation, and then providing the visible manifestation of the gospel. That's a track of the Black church. That's the City of Refuge track. That's your churches, all of your churches, right, are on that trajectory. But the Black church became known for something else. We became known for name it, claim it, blab it, grab it, and entertainment preaching that never challenged us to live the justice that we sought. So we kept trying to show up for justice, but we weren't living justly. Somehow the church of my own origin has more space for the vendors than we do for missions in the national meetings. You understand what I'm saying? There's more selling going on than there is feeding happening out of the national meeting now. And it used to be a time where if you got to the meeting, everybody would eat. And now it costs you so much to get to the meeting, you can't eat when you get home. because we lost our critique of capitalism, which was always tied to the abuse of Black and brown bodies. And we lost a passion to be free. And what we wanted to be is we wanted to assimilate. So we wanted to be engaged, but we didn't want to be free. And the reality is when, let's just take Brown versus the Board of Education, when schools were desegregated, we did not ask ourselves what we would be giving up by integrating. We asked ourselves what we would be gaining, but we forgot we would be losing Black teachers who believed Black children could learn. We forgot that we would give up teachers from the community who knew multiple generations of the family and would say, you Big John and you Little John, and I taught Big John, so I know you only capable of this where you at, but we're gonna call you up a little higher. We lost all of that. And we never found a replacement for that because we became interested in white gaze. The Pew Research does not take into consideration the nuance of the impact of white gaze. So when asking the question about how Black people feel about the Black church, you have to go back and ask, what Black church are you analyzing? What Black church are you critiquing? What Black church are you experiencing? So I say with Reverend Naomi, the Black church must stay Black. We've just got to make a concerted effort to be the Black church that's dedicated to the liberation of Black people so that we can be a true representation of the very Black Jesus. Now, I want to say this. Here's the caveat. I have a band. I have a phenomenal band at my church. They're phenomenal. And they're half white. And I struggle and I wrestle with, am I handing our music? Because, you know, at my church, we do Ava music. Am I handing our music to them? But the reality is, no. I am traditioning what has been the sound of liberation in the earth realm. And I really don't care what color your skin is when you pick up the sound, as long as you pick up the message that goes with the sound. That's my thought about where we are with the Black church. I hope it was helpful.
That was good. Like, I don't care what kind of musician you are. As long as you can play the music in the right key and the right sound, we good. So I wanted to say this before I brought Bishop Flunder back, because I know that Reverend Naomi has something that she wants to say. But I need to phrase the question first, and then I'm going to go to Reverend Naomi. It says, this is from Bishop-elect Sonia Williams, who is a part of our fellowship. Do you believe that the hate and health pandemic has shifted the purpose of the Black church from the old trajectory of neediness, brokenness, and suffrage, which was once the draw? What will our post-pandemic preaching look like? How do we help people to understand that salvation with liberation is a waste in any worship space? Reverend Naomi.
Yeah, so I'm really appreciating this question from Bishop-elect. You know, I think that what the documentary did do in its narrative arc was illustrate what brilliance emerged from oppression, from the context of chattel enslavement. I know that that's not all we are. That's perhaps not even the origin. It's not the origin of our faith, our spirituality. The documentary took a lot of time connecting the dots between enslaved Africans' experience in what will come to be the United States and the proliferation of our worship spaces, the Black church, right? But something happened. It's like we went from establishing our institutions in response to oppression, to mitigate oppression, to being, I think, overdetermined by the struggle. Our identity has in some ways, in some cases, become synonymous with pain, struggle, you know, and that to me is white supremacy's job, to make you believe that you are just a reflection. There's no you without whiteness, right? And that all we do, we move, we live, we have our being in response to whiteness and not a self-determined body, a self-determined institution, right? And so I think that we got to shift and change and transform our relationship to and with pain, to and with oppression. That is not to say that we are not still experiencing, right, the legacy of white supremacy. It's not even a legacy. The current machinations of white supremacy. That's not to say that struggle is not still part of a black experience in America. But when we become determined by the struggle, then we have no incentive to, right, get rid of the struggle. I won't know who I am if pain is my name and there's no more pain, right? If struggle is my name, then who am I without the struggle, right? And I think that this, I don't mean to frame this as kind of our doing. I think this is white supremacy's work, right? To continue to name us, to continue to impose upon us a particular kind of identity, right? This is why I love Reverend YaNi's concept of caste to describe what goes on in religious spaces, clergy caste, right? Because it describes the frozenness of these categories, right? You can't move up in the cat. You can't get out your cat. You're born into it and you die in it, right? And that's what white supremacy has set up, right? And so as Apostle Donalson said, capitalism simply supports these caste systems. So capitalism equals Black death. But we've been told, that, your faith is your wealth, your health is your wealth, right? But that's the lie of white supremacy, right? So I do think that, yeah, we need to, of course, serve our folks, serve our community, meet the need. There are gaps. We need to stand in those gaps. Absolutely. We have always been that kind of community. That's our radical ethic of care, right? But we must also remember that we are not determined by pain. Our identity is not pain. Our identity is Blackness. I said to somebody the other day, Blackness is not a burden. I just got a t-shirt in the mail. I'm a t-shirt person. I have on a shirt today that says, "A Black woman created this." So my t-shirt just came in the mail today and it says, "Being Black is a blessing." I'm gonna wear that tomorrow, right? So thinking about Blackness not as a burden to be lifted, but as a blessing, as a gift, as a joy. So anyway, I think that gets at some of what Bishop Yvette was referring to in that question.
Thank you, Reverend Naomi. Bishop is going to come. I just want to say this quick bit by Abdul. He texts me. He says, "We'll never learn about us from them. Our educational systems, our councils, our theological engagement." Bishop Flunder.
Oh, Lord, I'm having myself a time tonight. Listen, I know some people. Let me just say this, what I know. I know some people who live off of and thrive off of being broken. And they like to be around people that will break them. If you understand what I'm trying to say. So let me give you a case in point. Have you ever been around somebody that no matter where you start, they're going to take you to the land of pitiful? I don't care where you begin, because they receive something from it. They'll say, "Well, God bless you. I heard today's your birthday." Yeah, it's another year. It's another year. I'm older, honey, and I'm having some problems now with my knees and with my back. "Well, thank the Lord you lived another year." Yeah, I almost died, but I lived. I don't care where you start. I say, "Well, how you doing?" "Well, my husband, he beats me up." And then, I fell down the stairs a couple of weeks ago and I broke my leg. But I just need y'all to pray for me. "Well, Merry Christmas." Yeah, it's good for some people, but for me, it's just not merry. I don't like it. And I realized over a period of time that there are people that like to be around people who diminish them. And I know that that may sound peculiar, but then it doesn't sound peculiar, I think, to some of us, because it seems that they gain power from pity. And I think over time, we have folks in our own community that enjoy, to some degree, the receiving pity. I don't care where you start them. I don't care what the day is. I don't care how much they get, how much they have, there's always a sad story. There's always some brokenness. And I realize that that's some people's collateral for real, that they really enjoy it. And so in this conversation about being Black, I'm loving all of the Black affirming things that I'm hearing, but they're coming from the inside of people who have made a decision. It is a decision. I decide even what I'm going to do with your persecution. And there are some things that I will die for, without question. I am not afraid of death. I don't have no passion for it. I don't have no welcome sign on me telling it to come on. But I can tell you straight out, you said, well, you might die. There are literally some things I absolutely will die for, without hesitation. Well, why? Somebody said, well, why? Because I will not continue to live at any price or in any situation or any circumstance. I will do my best to change it if I have to die doing it. And I do know that that has everything to do with the breath of God that breathes into us self-esteem, value. Remember, there were tons of people who diminished you. If I had an organ and a tambourine right now, we'd have service. Just thinking about the people that diminished us. Think about that. Think about how many people saw you'd never make it in terms of their vision of you. Think about how many people reduced you to something that they thought was lower than them, and they could tolerate you as long as you were lower. As long as you were smaller, as long as you could never achieve what they had achieved, they could tolerate you and use your gifts and use your skills in every conceivable. But when you grew out and above it, you became an enemy and you became problematic. Why am I saying this? Because I think pity is another form, self-pity for many people is another form of pride. It's something that gets people to pay attention to you and get you on the front and get people feeling guilty so that they'll give you something. Come on now. So they'll do something. But we don't want it because we're pitiful. We want it because it is ours. It is ours. And if you never give it to me, I'm still not pitiful. But I want it because it is mine. And if I have a half a chance, as God give me strength, I will take it from you. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop Flunder. Bishop-elect Hayes.
Woo! That was some good stuff. That was some good stuff. I know that as I'm hearing, as I was listening to Bishop, there are some things that I will die for. As the old saying says, before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. Well, what is that today for us in 2021? What does that mean today? Well, I am not going to take down and co-sign the massacre or the massacring, the killing of my fellow brothers and sisters. I am not going to give up all of my, one of the things that has been absolutely amazing to me to have watched, because I am a political person and I watch the news and I follow politics way more than I should probably. But it has been amazing to me to watch what has happened to particularly the Republican Party over the last 4 years. that people that, even though I may have different beliefs in them than them from a political standpoint, being a Democrat and Republican, but to watch them give up all of themselves to become a slave to literally to nothing. Nothing. To now they have, their voice means nothing. What they say means nothing. They don't stand for nothing. They're just nothing. It's empty and it's void now. To have watched and to watch that happen, that's something, Bishop, that I'd die for. Before I would become nothing, can't stand up for nothing, I would die for that. I saw one of the questions that came in. It's about young people and leaving the church. And what does that mean for us? And what does it mean about it? How should we bring about an understanding? And I truly do think this type of dialogue, these are the kinds of conversations that we have to have. I'm rooting for everybody Black. That we're very clear about who we are as a people and what is the message and hope that we do offer and that we do bring, that is what we're able to bring to our young people. I want to hear from the young people. I'm about to turn 50 years old this year, and I still consider myself young, but I also know that there's some folks behind me that have some quality things to say and ideas that can help me come along and to come around. And so I think that it's very important that we are able to hear those voices and bring those voices continually to the table. And the last thing that I want to say, because I know we're getting close, I do not understand how we as Black people have bought into the concept of laziness. People who work from sun up past sundown. People who I know who work 2 and 3 jobs to put food on their tables, even in and through a pandemic time, the work ethics, the harshness of work, trying to stay up, but yet we have allowed whiteness to tell us that we are lazy, that we're lazy people. So this concept or this idea of struggle, this idea, I remember one time my bishop mother told me, she said, Roger, you don't have to suffer to be in relationship with God. That was completely nuanced to me because I grew up in a church that it was all about suffering. Your Christianity was based on suffering. So what Bishop was saying about individuals saying, well, Merry Christmas. Well, child, I tell you, Santa's not going to make it to our house this year, but because suffering, we thought we had to be low to have God. The preacher drove a car that only had 3 wheels. I mean, it was always low and broke down. And so the idea of coming up or having seemed to be lost. It seemed as though that wasn't available to us. So this idea of losing the power that comes with pity, letting go of pity, letting go of this need to always be the one suffering or always looking for a handout. I think after the pandemic, I hope one of the things that we're able to do is to realize that we really are our brothers and sisters' keeper. And we need to do more in-house taking care of, if you would, creating more opportunities in the house for jobs and employment. One of the things that in my business that I have been able to do is to hire within, because I want to be able to pay a living wage. I want to be able to help people stand on their own 2 feet. I want to be able to hold them accountable for the dollars that I know they have earned because I paid them a fair wage. So we can begin to let go of some of that and to be there for one another. So I'm excited about what those possibilities can look like and mean for us moving forward in this time.
Thank you, Bishop Yvette Hayes, Dr. Donalson, and Rev. YaNi.
I don't know that I have too much to add other than we as Black church have got to move beyond privileging the authoritative universal voice found in Eurocentric Christianity. We've got to get back to having an understanding of the divine that takes into consideration both our experience and our experiment. We have thought for so long we had to concretize and systematize everything in order to legitimate our ideas and our relationships with the divine, but faith is fluid. When it was it's faith, this definition, faith-seeking understanding. When I was a little boy, my daddy taught me, now don't y'all tell nobody, but my daddy taught me how to pour concrete, and he taught me how to lay brick. And I can do it. I don't do it, but I can do it. And when you take the brick, you have a fluid mortar that you pour between the bricks to set them in order to build or erect an infrastructure. If you don't have the fluidity of the mortar to set between those bricks, you are unable to erect the structure in the way that you want it to. In other words, it takes something fluid to make something sustainable. Eventually, that which is fluid will cement and concretize, and what you need something else fluid in order to change that structure. We've got to get back to being a people of a fluid faith that allows room between that which we know for that which we do not know. We've got to get back to being people of mystery. We've got to get back to seeking a God that is beyond our definitions, because if we can make a creed or a code that fully encapsulates the divine, we are idolaters, because we are more interested in who we said God is than knowing who God really is. And I think that's why young people are leaving the church, because our concretized infrastructures have proven to be a fool's errand. And they know that it takes the openness of mystery to be in relationship to a God that is beyond words.
Excellent, Apostle Donalson. Thank you so much for that. Last but certainly not least, Reverend YaNi.
Yeah, so many things coming to mind, but as I think about the Black church and our regenerative power, I think about even my experience with kidney disease, and for a few days, right, being gone to this world and not knowing if I was going to come back. And then now here we are in this space where we don't know what's going on, where things are a little dark, where it kind of reminds me of the 12 hours of dialysis at night. And so as I think about that, I think about the PTSD that I'm dealing with in the midst of this season, which also relates back to the church. The church has had some seasons of death and dying, of being dormant. But one thing that I do know, sure as I am here today, that same regenerative power that has me here is the same regenerative power that we have in the Black church. As I was thinking about what Bishop-elect Hayes was saying in terms of being brought low, one word that we love in the church, right? And we use it a lot, and I get it, right? I'm going to tell you why I get it, but the word is humble. Humble meaning having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance, of low social, administrative, or political rank, of modest pretensions or dimensions. And so when I think about that, I wrestle with how much it's been beaten into me to be humble, to the point that I cannot live into the beauty and the brilliance and the abundance and the glory of all that I am. And so I still love the word humble, but humble in the sense that I am all things because of the spirit that lives within me, right? And so flipping the definition, but also having to recognize our words have a heavy impact, right? That the vocal, the voice, the vibration going out into the world is it's powerful. So we've got to know our words and understand what we're saying when we use them, right? And the power and authority that we have as we use them. As it relates to young people and the church, everybody's left the church right now. We all out here, we all trying to figure it out as leaders and otherwise, right? And so if we think about this PTSD, right, even as I think about all empires having to fall, I think about this new space, this new iteration, this new dimension that we're living into. If we think about wrestling not with flesh and blood, but principalities in high places, and as I relate that to a metaphysical understanding, what we're saying is that we're taking these ideas and these thoughts and this imagination and this creative theology and this ability to call things in from a fifth dimension space and bringing it here to our reality in the 3D, as sure as I'm looking at all of you and I have flesh and blood. So we're taking the spirituality and we're bringing it down. We're manifesting and creating heaven on earth. And yeah, these people got me twisted and they coming for my life. They're evil and they wicked in the middle of the night. I thought it was a fluke, but now they setting people up. The divine design is now lifting people up. We were tormented and terrorized. They stormed into our land. The villagers were wondering, who is this foreign man? Why do they bring the discord and they bring in the disease? Ancestors, please bring these people to their knees. Are you ready, my siblings? Because this train is bound for glory. Truth tellers coming with another story. No more sleeping because the people are awake. Never ever get it twisted. I'm the slayer of the snakes. So what you gonna do when they come for you?
Yeah, I love it. Reverend YaNi is preaching for Rivers on this Sunday. Y'all come in here.
Yes.
Bishop Flunder, you can have this last word, please.
Last word is, my God. I have had myself a time. I have been in the company of prophets. If this has been a very hectic and busy day, but what a wonderful way to end the day. God bless each one of you. You all shine. You shine. Not just on your foreheads, because your foreheads are shining. But I want you to know you shine the light of God and the light of love and the light of purpose and the light of intention. And I'm just so glad to be in this family. I'm strengthened by it. I want to close with a word of prayer tonight, because there's a lot on the table. And there's a lot in our hands. There's a lot under our feet. There's a lot in our back. And one of my friends and his spouse, who fought really hard to open their churches because of the COVID restrictions in California, and won in the Supreme Court in California. And he and his wife are both now infected with COVID-19. It is an interesting situation that we are in now. Many voices, many choices. But we're going to go to God and ask God, the God of our understanding, for favor in this hour. Now, gracious God, by all your many names and all your magnificent manifestations, we, your people, are grateful to know you and be known by you. And I heard the preacher say tonight that you are beauty in your mystery. The joy of following you when we don't know really what you're about to do, in what way you're about to take us. That is the joy of the journey. A pillar of fire by night and a cloud by day. And the commandment that the old hymn said, and where God leads me, I will follow. I will go with God all the way. Bless these prophets, all that they touch. Bless all the prophets online with us, those that are seeking you and seeking after you. Be our helper in this most peculiar time. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. You are the God of all flesh, and there is absolutely nothing impossible with you. Be our strength. Be our guide. Be our God in this time. Our commitment, our pledge to you is when you call, we'll answer. And where you lead, we will follow. Amen. Praise God. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
Love y'all. Yes, I do. I love you. Make my forehead shiny. I love you. I do. Take good care.
Thank you so much, Bishop. We have want to just give another shout out to the Facebook Live audience, to the YouTube audience. We would not have a show if it wasn't for you all supporting us. We are grateful for your presence with us. Thank you for sharing. You can share this conversation even after we go off broadcast. You can still share it with other people that need to hear it so that we can have more dialogue. I want to thank all of our panelists that came for 2 weeks in a row to be with us. Apostle Donalson, Bishop Yvette Hayes, Reverend YaNi, Reverend Naomi. God bless you. Thank you so much. Of course, the Bishop Flunder, because I know you're tired, and we appreciate you so very much. And we want to make sure that we give some announcements and some advertisement. We're grateful for those that send money to advertise with us. And so if you want to advertise with us, you may do so as well. Let us go to the advertisement now. Introducing the Dope Black Collection. Dope Black Pastor, Dope Black Son, Dope Black Daughter, Dope Black Minister, Dope Black Mom, Dope Black Auntie. Sky Michelle's Teas and Things. Sky Michelle is my goddaughter. She's 7 years old, and she said she wanted to start a company, and she started making these little designs and saying little things, and we started helping her to put it together. And if you want a customized t-shirt, you can get one. All items can be customized. She has a website. You can go to www.skymichelle.com. Cara Solutions. Cara Solutions, in case you all don't know, is Pastor Sue. Pastor Sue has her own company. Focus on your passion. Let Cara handle the rest. She does administrative, business, and consulting services for dreamers, visionaries, entrepreneurs, faith and community-based organizations. Go to www.cara-solutions.com. For those of you that need training on StreamYard, on YouTube, on whatever your platform is, Zoom, she can help you with that too for a fee. Thank you. And you heard about the book on tonight because he made mention of it. The Black Lives Matter movement toward an intersectional theology. Apostle Edward Donalson III has a book. Go to Amazon to purchase it. www.amazon.com. And Reverend YaNi also mentioned about an event that she will be presenting on 2/27. I believe 2/27 is Saturday. 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. Reverend YaNi Davis, creator and host, Life and Legacy, Keep HBCUs Alive. She has a wealth of knowledge and a number of guest speakers that's going to participate in this conversation. It's going to be on Facebook Live. Join her. She's going to be at our church, Rivers of Living Water, United Church of Christ, for Youth and Young Adults Sunday on this Sunday at 2:00 p.m. Help us in Black History Month. We are Black History 365 days of the year, but 28th will end it. Let's celebrate on this Sunday. And we have the Healing Place Apothecary, and that is the business of Nubian Flunder, who is the daughter of our presiding bishop, Bishop Flunder. She is the founder, and you can go to her website to get any kind of material that you might need. Go to www.thp, which is the Healing Place Apothecary.com. Please support this Black-owned business. If you want to advertise with Beyond the Gatekeepers, you may do so. Hit us up via email, beyondthegatekeepershow@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us. Please support our broadcast by sending a donation via Cash App to $TFM Annual or PayPal at www.paypal.me/TFM Justice. Please support our future broadcasts. Credits tonight, Jesus is the Light of the World, is our intro and outro. Thank you so much for joining us. We are grateful for your presence. God bless you until we meet again.